Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 314, a deep dive into lawlessness, part 4, the 33 degrees of debility. The podcast objectives are revisit the all or nothing nature of holiness and perfection, provide a warning against deception, and analyze the 33 degrees associated with spiritual debility. This lesson contains timelines and other visuals. Therefore, if you are listening to the podcast, I advise you to watch the video version on our website or YouTube, or request a PDF of the lesson so you can add the visual effect. All he needs is one. Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome to day 29 of our exposition of lawlessness. In the most recent podcast, we executed a deep dive into the second of the three primary divisions of lawlessness. Enter spiritual instability. That leaves us with one final division of lawlessness we must address before we begin executing a deep dive into all the 80 degrees. Enter spiritual debility. By definition, spiritual debility is a state of being weakened, lacking health, strength, and or power, a particular part or quality of someone that is neither good nor effective, a disability, frailty, or infirmity. Now, the problem with spiritual debility should be quite clear, perhaps even clearer than all the issues stemming from spiritual fallibility and instability. To wit, spiritual debility is contrary to and the antithesis of spiritual power. Here lies a tremendous problem, a colossal trouble, as it were. It is such a crucial issue that I will offer it as an inflection point, and I sincerely encourage you to bookmark it. The acquisition and actualization of spiritual power is the fundamental objective of our quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life. Ergo, all who fail to achieve this prime objective will make little to no progress in their quest. What is more, they will be right where Satan wants them, that is, in a spiritual state where they lack the power, authority, and or dominion to defeat him and his kingdom in spiritual warfare. And thus, every spiritual stronghold he has established will remain fixed in your life and subject you to a wide range of conflicts, tribulations, and ills, all of which are designed to kill you spiritually and physically. Here lies the inflection. Vis-a-vis, Satan doesn't need 1,000 strongholds to compromise you or your election into everlasting life or your attainment of the seal of Elohim. My dear friends, all he needs is one. This speaks to the all or nothing nature of holiness and perfection, which we have declared from the beginning. Brothers and sisters, we are not here to operate in a fraction of the powers of the Spirit. Quite the contrary, we are here to operate in all the powers of the Spirit. And if we fail to do so, the degree of lawlessness that will destroy us will be the ones adjacent to the powers of the spirit we failed to unlock. Is that how you want to end your spiritual career? Being sentenced to endless death for failing to open one of the most precious gifts afforded to man. Let no man deceive you. Now, I trust you answered this question in the negative. And if that is so, then you must come to understand all the degrees of spiritual debility. Then you must implement your strategy for defeating them all. As you learned in a recent podcast, the degrees of fallibility are all color coded in yellow, and they are situated at the top of the mountain of lawlessness. They begin with ego and continue to alienation. You also learned that the degrees of instability are color coded in light orange, and they are located at the center of the mountain of lawlessness. They begin with wrath and continue to hedonism. In like manner, the degrees of debility are all color coded in dark orange, and they are situated at the foundation of the mountain of lawlessness. They begin with vanity and they end with doubt. And thus, the degrees of debility include vanity, rejection, thoughtlessness, deception, ignorance, prejudice, contempt, disobedience, and doubt. These are the degrees of lawlessness that feed into our spiritual debility, 8 of which are primary degrees. Now, as you would expect, the same principles governing the degrees of fallibility and instability are applied to the degrees of debility. To it, the 5 levels are core diseases, and the 4 intervals are primary symptoms. Along these lines, deception is primarily a symptom of vanity and rejection. Ignorance is a symptom of thoughtlessness. Contempt is a symptom of prejudice, and doubt is a symptom of disobedience. Now, as we have discussed in prior podcasts, deception is the one degree of lawlessness that permeates the entire mountain. Vis-a-vis, it is a factor of spiritual fallibility, instability, and debility. Notwithstanding, because deception is designed primarily to corrupt our knowledge of the Father's will, it is best classified as a degree of debility, being adjacent to knowledge, which is the 3rd level of the pinnacle of holiness. Now, the pervasiveness of deception is confirmed by the scriptures, which warn us against deception on multiple occasions. The reason why is sure, and I will offer it as an inflection point, which I encourage you to bookmark. Of all the 80 degrees of lawlessness, deception is the only degree which has the power to subject you to the 3 primary diseases stemming from lawlessness. To wit, deception has the power to subject you to spiritual fallibility, instability, and or debility. And it is the only degree of lawlessness which has this power. Therefore, I caution you to heed the words of our beloved Savior, and let no man deceive you. Alas, many false prophets have gone out into the world with the single purpose to deceive. And so, take my advice and stay in the word and hold fast to what you believe. 33 degrees of debility. Now, whereas 22 of the 80 degrees of lawlessness are degrees of fallibility, and 25 are degrees of instability, the remaining 33 are degrees of debility. Here again, 8 of these are primary degrees, They are doubt, disobedience, contempt, prejudice, ignorance, deception, thoughtlessness, and rejection. From now, we should begin analyzing the 25 secondary degrees of debility. We will begin with doubt and conclude with vanity. As you can see by the list to the right, doubt, i.e., one of the primary degrees of lawlessness, is supported by despair, distrust, and self-reliance. These three degrees constitute the spiritual disease of doubt, i.e., the most primal of the primary degrees of lawlessness. Accordingly, the only way we can eliminate the spiritual disease of doubt is by first eliminating the spiritual viruses of despair, distrust, and self-reliance. Here again, these three degrees are the source of the spiritual disease of doubt. Now, the same rule is applied to disobedience and its secondary degrees. Vis-a-vis, to eliminate all disobedience, you must first eliminate noncompliance, nonconformance, and complacency, in that order. Likewise, to eliminate contempt, you must first eliminate dishonesty, unrighteousness, and defilement, again in that order. Then again, to eliminate prejudice, you must first eliminate immorality, irreverence, and blasphemy. To eliminate ignorance, you must first eliminate disregard, error, and denial. To eliminate deception, you must first eliminate misconception, confusion, and delusion. To eliminate thoughtlessness, you must first eliminate imprudence, indecision, and incompetence. To eliminate rejection, you must first eliminate insanity, misjudgment, and failure. Last but not least, to eliminate vanity, which is a degree of debility, you must first eliminate all the other degrees of debility. This is the same rule for wrath and rebellion. And here you have a table of the 33 degrees of debility for your review. Now, here is the final word. The message for all from day to day is be not deceived nor led astray. I've said it before, but I will say it again. In the spirit of the watchman, many deceivers have gone out into the world, and many of them are within the extended nation of Israel. And thus, I will offer a prayer for all who have been called to try the spirits by the Spirit, so we should never fall. If to the right or left I stray, that moment, O Yahuwah, reprove, and let me weep my life away for having grieved thy love. Oh, may the least omission pain my well-instructed soul, and drive me to thy blood again, which makes the wounded whole. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on the word you have heard today, and as always, ask the Father to reveal the truth to you. For the children of Elohim live by conviction, and if he has not convicted you, or if you had not heard him concerning these matters, you should pray until you do. For today, I want you to consider all the degrees of debility we reviewed today. And I want you to meditate on one single thought. These 33 degrees are specifically designed to prevent you from unlocking the powers of the spirit of Elohim. Therefore, I want you to proactively pray against all these degrees. First and foremost, especially the ones you know you have yet to overcome. and you will overcome, and soon, for we will address these degrees first. They are the priority. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, End Times 3:14, a deep dive into lawlessness, part 4. And the next podcast is entitled End Times 3:16, Who Then Can Be Saved? I will post this podcast on Wednesday, July 31st, 2024. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.